Most rebrands will fail in execution, not in the concept. The decision to rebrand is rarely the problem. The strategy work between that decision and the launch is where the money gets wasted and the new brand collapses on contact with the operation. Operators don't fail because they choose the wrong logo. They fail because they treated the logo as the project. I'm Julia Carcamo. I've spent the past 2 decades helping regional casino operators rebrand their properties without wasting their capital. And the single biggest determinant of whether a rebrand works or doesn't isn't the budget, the agency, or the design talent. It's the order in which the work gets done. There are 6 steps in a successful casino rebrand. They have to happen in a specific order, and the order matters more than any individual step. I'm walking through all 6, what each one actually involves, and the most common place each one gets shortcut. Let's get into it. Step 1 is strategy and positioning. That is the foundation, and it has to be settled before anything else moves. The questions to answer is, what is the rebrand for? What does the property need to stand for that it doesn't stand for now? Who's the target audience? What does the competitive landscape really look like? Now, this isn't a one-day workshop. It's weeks of research, customer conversations, competitive analysis, and leadership alignment. And here's where most operators shortcut the step. They treat it as a kickoff. They have one strategy session, they walk away with a positioning statement, and then they move on. The positioning statement gets framed and then forgotten. The agency starts working on logos. When you shortcut this step, every subsequent step gets harder. The design team has no real platform to work from. The operations team has no clear North Star. The leadership team can't agree on what success looks like, and the rebrand drifts toward the generic. Take the time. Get this right. The rest gets easier. Step 2 is internal alignment. Now you have a strategy. The next move is to make sure leadership, operations, marketing, and any key stakeholders are aligned on a strategic direction. Not aligned on the logo, aligned on the brand promise, the audience, the positioning, and the operational implications. This means working through the strategy with each stakeholder, hearing their concerns, adjusting where the strategy needs adjustment based on what they bring to the table, and reaching a place where everyone in the room can articulate the brand promise the same way. The most common mistake here is skipping the operations team. Marketing has the strategy locked. Leadership has signed off. Operations gets a briefing memo 2 months later when the work is already in flight. By then, every operational implication is a constraint, not a contribution, and the operations team becomes the friction point that slows the rebrand down. Get them in the room from week 1. Their concerns about delivery, capital, and staffing should be shaping the strategy, not adjusting to it after the fact. Now, operational implications is step 3. The strategy is set, the team is aligned, and now you scope out what changes about how the property actually runs in order to deliver on the new brand. This is the work that determines whether the brand can be delivered on the floor. Service standards have to be reevaluated and updated. Training programs need to be rebuilt. Vendor relationships might need to change. Hiring criteria adjust to support the new brand. And there's almost always capital expense for environmental updates, refreshing public spaces, signage installation, sometimes interior changes. Most importantly, a real change management plan emerges from this step. Who owns what? What changes when? How the floor gets prepared? None of this is a marketing exercise. It's an operations exercise that marketing supports. The mistake here is letting the visual design work start before this step is complete. Once logo concepts are in circulation, the operational work gets squeezed. Don't let it. The operational implications have to be fully scoped before the visual work begins. And now we come to step 4, visual identity development. Now and only now the design work begins. Logo, design system, voice and tone guidelines, environmental design, digital expression, all of it. The reason this step comes fourth and not first is because the strategic platform has to drive the design work. When the strategy is settled and operations is aligned, the designer has something specific to design for. They know who the brand is for, what it promises, how it's delivered, and what it needs to look like to deliver that promise. When you skip steps 1 through 3 and jump straight to design, the designer is working blind. They produce something visually competent that doesn't actually solve anything strategic. Leadership debates color palettes, marketing debates typography, and the design that ends up on the wall is whoever had the strongest opinion in design, not strategically anchored designs. Design with strategy in place is a powerful thing. Design without it is decoration. Step 5 is your internal launch. Now that the new visual identity is approved, the strategy is locked, the operational changes are scoped. Now you have to prepare the people who will deliver this brand. This isn't a one-day brand workshop. It's months of staff preparation, training programs that teach the new brand promise, language and tools that help staff articulate the brand to guests, authority structures that let the staff make in-the-moment decisions consistent with the new brand, and recognition systems that reward staff who exemplify what the brand stands for. The internal launch is over when staff can articulate the brand promise as confidently as marketing can. Until then, you're not ready for external launch. The mistake here is treating the internal launch as a logistics problem. It's not. It's a culture change. It takes time. And rushing it is the single most common reason a rebrand looks great on launch day and then falls apart in the weeks that follow. Step 6, external launch. Finally, the new brand goes public. Coordinated rollout to guests, the market, and the community. PR, signage installation, a new digital expression goes live, promotions and campaigns built around the new position, all of it. The reason this step comes last is because now the property is ready to deliver what marketing is promising. Staff knows the brand, operations can support it, leadership is aligned, the strategic platform is settled, the design is anchored in real positioning. Everything below the waterline matches everything above it. The external launch is the visible payoff of months of strategic, operational, and internal work. And if the previous 5 steps are done right, it's the easiest step. Just execute the plan. That's the sequence: strategy, internal alignment, operational implications, visual identity, internal launch, external launch. Most failed rebrands invert the sequence. They start with the logo because the logo feels like progress. They do the strategy work in parallel with the design work, which means the strategy never really leads. They compress the operational and internal work because the external launch date is fixed. And then 6 figures and a year later, they're surprised that the new brand just didn't change anything. The sequence I mentioned is harder to follow. It requires holding off on the visible work until the invisible is done. It's also the only sequence that produces a rebrand that takes. Now, if you want a full strategy guide with this sequence written out and more context, the link is in the description. It's the cornerstone post on my website, and if you found this useful, subscribe for more practical content for regional casino operators. Thanks for watching.